Welcome to the Bob Maas Show. I'm Bob Maas, your host. Opinions offered on this site are based on a Christian conservative viewpoint. If you have any questions or comments, please contact me at bobmaasshow@gmail.com. If you'd like to be considered for a guest spot on this platform, contact me at the same email address. This is a short podcast on communication or lack thereof. I'm sure you have noticed if you follow any social media platforms, watch any mainstream media news, or political opinion shows, that the videos show the lack of any serious communication between guests. We allow only 30 to 45 second sound bites for a person to make their point. None seem to take to heart what James 1:19 states in the Bible. So then, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. For the wrath of man does not produce the righteousness of God. Swift to hear. When was the last time you met someone that was swift to hear? When, if ever, have I or you been swift to hear? Not often enough, if any, I'm ashamed to say. How often have you been involved in a conversation and caught the other person looking over your shoulder at someone else or at their phone while you're voicing your viewpoint? How did that make you feel? It's probably safe to say undervalued, invisible, and of no importance. What opinion did you walk away with of that person? It's probably safe to say you didn't walk away with a high regard for their opinion or even considering seeking out that person again for further insight on that topic or any other topic. We all want our opinion to be considered of value. We all want to be heard. If you want validation of that statement, just visit social media. People are bold in their response to any situation when it's just a screen in front of them instead of a live person. People are so starved to be heard that they post what they had for supper. It would probably be safe to say anyone under 35 has more selfies than any 50 or above year old have pictures of themselves or family. Social media allows anyone a captive audience without verbal or physical interaction. On the other side of the coin, posted attacks from all sides can be brutal to any social media post without any accountability to the responder. Slow to speak. Rarely do we encounter a person slow to speak. How many times do we not even let a person finish their sentence before we start with our answer? How many times are we formulating a rebuttal without listening to the whole argument? Take these two examples into consideration of how not to listen.
They don't want to be out there defending Senator Sanders.
Thank you, Mayor Buttigieg. I was talking
Have you called on me before?
If you could honor the rules of the debate.
The only way we're going to restore American credibility.
As someone who,
The only way
as the
we
person
can do this.
Do we think raising the minimum wage to a living wage? Do we think building the millions of you?
Acting this position. You are taking the wrong position. That's it. No, my brother, that stuff plays out. That plays out. Address the question. Do you? Oh my.
Proverbs 18:13. He who gives an answer before he hears, it is folly and shame to him. If you disagree with anyone, even if it's only on one topic, it seems that you're ostracized, or as we call it today, canceled. We can agree on 10 other topics, but today's social anger demands that you cancel the disagreeing party for disagreeing on one topic. It's all or nothing. I ask you how boring this life would be if you continue to surround yourself with yes people only. I smile when people in my past and present state Christianity is lived in a bubble, but expect me to believe in the bubble they have created for themselves. Their beliefs are built on secular self-knowledge, where Christianity is based on the Word of God. But that leads to another whole podcast. Debating is now based on winners and losers, and not on striving to learn from each other. The Dalai Lama said, "When you talk, you're only repeating something you already know. But if you listen, you may learn something new." Let me say that again. When you talk, you're only repeating something you already know. But if you listen, you may learn something new. What did we learn from the two examples presented in the video, but how not to express your opinion and how not to value another's opinion? Proverbs 18:13 states, "A fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only in expressing his opinion." No one in the two video examples wanted to learn or understand an opposing opinion, but only wanted to hear themselves talk and claim their opinion is my truth. There is only one truth, Jesus Christ. All participants were not slow to anger. They wanted to win at all costs. Here is a video example of a somewhat legitimate debate.
Who oppose them on campuses, in society and whatnot, from Donald Trump to people in Swarthmore. We've seen this happen. So wouldn't you say that the attempt to claw back or the right of freedom of speech isn't so far absolute as instrumental? And based on that, therefore, there are some cases where freedom of speech of some individuals can be curtailed if we want to get the better appreciation of the Logos and a better inclusion of more voices that are currently being shut out as a result of the extremity and radicalism of those select few. Wouldn't you say that's the case? Thank you.
Well, there's a very simple answer to that, which is yes, but I'll elaborate. I mean, the first thing is, I'm not an admirer of hate speech laws, but that doesn't mean that I'm naive enough to think that there's no such thing as hate speech. So obviously, if you've ever been involved in an extremely serious argument, you know perfectly well that there's such a thing as hate speech.
We have become a society fractured by winners and losers. You're defined by your political party, left or right, gender, 87 and counting, race, black or white, Hispanic or Native American, income, rich or poor, the house you live in, mansion or shack, your age, old or young, and it seems that is what determines if you're worth listening to. Do the young listen to the old? Or do they think he, she is an old codger and doesn't know what it's like today? They can't possibly understand my problems. If we don't listen, we will not understand.
Really? You're an hour late. Now the post office is closed.
I just forgot, okay?
You're so irresponsible. What's wrong with you?
I just forgot, okay?
You're grounded.
You're so unfair.
The elitists of this country have taken over education, mainstream media, social networks, and want only their truth told. Censorship used to be an extreme reaction has become a political tool. President Joe Biden wants to establish a disinformation board to battle what his administration deems false information. The left is up in arms simply because a social media platform was bought by a billionaire that wants all sides of an issue to be available for us to evaluate as true or false. If you're for free speech, why would you try to shut down any competing opinions or run from the cerebral exercise of dissecting the argument presented, or after evaluating the argument, that you could actually change your opinion? There's another side to consider when we refuse to listen. Children. When a child is not heard, where can they go? Two places they can go. First is to withdraw inside themselves, or second, rebel against authorities. I think we have all seen a child that has withdrawn inside themselves at a certain age and became socially awkward. I know firsthand the damage a child or adult can receive from perceiving not being heard. Not all instances of lack of a communication with the child is deliberate. Life can get in the way. Job demands, social demands, ambition, narcissism, being overwhelmed by finances or parental responsibilities. COVID has taught us some things we didn't want to learn. Children locked up from any social activity don't do well. Following is an excerpt of one study by Fair Health concerning the effect of mental health of teenage children during the lockdowns associated with COVID-19. To do so, Fair Health analyzed data from its database of over 32 billion private healthcare records, tracking month-by-month changes from January to November 2020 compared to the same months in 2019. Aspects of pediatric mental health investigated include overall mental health, intentional self-harm, overdoses, and substance abuse, reasons for emergency room visits, and state-by-state variations. In March and April 2020, mental health claims for individuals aged 13 through 18 as a percentage of all medical claims approximately doubled over the same months in the previous year. All medical claims for other reasons decreased by approximately half. That pattern of increased mental health claims and decreased medical claims continued through November 2020. A similar pattern was seen for individuals aged 19 to 22, though the changes were smaller. In general, the age group 19 to 22 had mental health trends like but less pronounced than the age group 13 through 18. Intentional self-harm as a percentage of all medical claims in the 13 to 18 age group increased 90% in March 2020 compared to March 2019. The increase was even larger when comparing April 2020 to April 2019, 99%. Comparing August 2019 to August 2020 in the Northeast, for the age group 13 to 18, there was a 333% increase in intentional self-harm, a rate higher than that in any other region in any month studied for that age group. For the age group 13 to 18, claims for overdoses increased 94% in March 2020 compared to 2019, and 119% in April 2020 over the same months from the year before. Claims for substance abuse also increased in March, 64%, and April, 62% in 2020 as compared to their corresponding months in 2019. For the age group 6 to 12, from spring to November 2020, claims for obsessive compulsive disorder and tic disorders increased from their levels in the corresponding months of 2019. For the age group 13 through 18 in April 2020, claims for generalized anxiety disorder increased 93% over April 2019, while major depressive disorder claims increased 83% and adjustment disorder claims 89%. People, our children and grandchildren, need someone to listen, sometimes without an immediate judgment. Rebellion. Some but not all children can resort to gang activity as a form of belonging and validation by identifying with a gang. We shouldn't kid ourselves into believing this is just for larger cities. Gangs have broadened their income by bracing out to suburban areas. Our prayer is that it doesn't happen to our children or grandchildren, but don't let yourself be desensitized to this issue just because you live in a suburban or rural area. Our children and grandchildren need someone to listen, sometimes without immediate judgment. So then, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. My experience with rebelling is somewhat mild compared to issues teenagers and children deal with today. I didn't have to deal with the overt sexual preferences initiated in our educational system, or deal with hard drug issues that are rampant in our school system, or social media interactions. I was a quiet, reserved child on the outside, but inside I had plenty to say. I was physically a small child and quickly learned that in the school system, to be quiet eliminated the possibility of being ridiculed, which sometimes led to physical confrontations. During those years, I was unknowingly looking for a place to belong and to be validated. I thirsted for someone to hear me. At 15, I started work at a fast food restaurant, and after a couple of weeks was welcomed into a fraternity of sorts. I wasn't ridiculed or intimidated, and I felt I was seen and heard for the first time. Unfortunately, this membership introduced me to alcohol as a coping tool. I wasn't unique in the way alcohol affected me. My reservations and inhibitions were non-existent after a few brews. I thrived and lived for a party. I rebelled against parental authority and felt I could do whatever I wanted, but inwardly was calling out for help. But nobody heard what wasn't being said. To be quite honest, at that age, I was unwilling to listen. Isn't it funny how the window of opportunity to communicate opens and closes, but the residual effects live on for some time? When I was a child, I was crying for someone to listen, but people were caught up in their own life. But when I became older, they were willing to listen, but I was unwilling to communicate. I identified more with the gang I hung around with than my family. The gang welcomed me without question or judgment. I felt I was being heard. As with all things built only on the surface, it all unraveled. Friendships that I thought would never end did. My initial group of buddies grew up and moved on to wed and form families. I formed new relationships that allowed me to continue to abuse alcohol and other risky behaviors. I wasted a decade of my life abusing alcohol and indulging in narcissistic behavior. My longing to be heard morphed into only listen to me. I didn't hear or listen to anyone with a helpful or opposing view. I wish I could tell you I pulled myself up by the bootstraps and straightened myself out. That is not the case. I believe a praying grandmother, birth of a baby girl, and praying girlfriend, who eventually became my wife, brought me to my senses with the emphasis on praying. The Holy Spirit and their prayers removed the veils from my eyes. Do I still not listen well? Certainly, but I'm learning. A skill I believe is worth developing is the ability to hear what is not being said. Identifying just by a look in their eye or a change in their posture that there is something more they want to say, but might need a little encouragement or more time for them to reveal. I repeat, a skill worth developing is the ability to hear what is not being said. One thing about maturing is knowing that what seemed important at the time eventually reveals its true character, and that it had no value at all. The devil has duped us into believing the promotion, title, status, income, car, or home we live in defines our legacy. I learned from experience that learning to listen well to our God, children, grandchildren, parents, spouses, and friends are one of the things that are of true value. Let your legacy be that you listened well, not that you spoke well. 1 Corinthians 2:4. And my speech and my preaching were not with persuasive words of human wisdom, but in demonstration of the Spirit and of power. James 1:19. Again, so then, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath, for the wrath of man does not produce the righteousness of God. Thanks for listening. May your family and your friends and relatives and everybody involved in your life be blessed with the presence of God. May you have sound mind, body, heart, and soul until we talk again. This is the Bob Maas Show. Let's talk.